Welcome to episode 1 of the TNA Podcast. Are y'all tracking with the TNA? It was like a teenage joke that Adrienne and I were talking about. And I was like, no, that's catchy. We should go with TNA. She's like, I really like it. I'm like, it's not too late to change our name. So come on, TNA.
Well, and it also gives you a sense of our sense of humor also, right? Totally not appropriate, but historically TNA has been...
Which I don't have the former, but I'm working on the latter. Historically, I don't have either.
I have both.
So Adrienne's really shown up strong in this one for both of us. Like,
I have no waist though. I'm just like all tits and ass. Like,
I have no waist and I have tiny mounds, but they've grown. We're starting this podcast talking about our tits. That's amazing. You're listening to the TNA Podcast.
Totally not appropriate.
We're your hosts, Taylor Sappington, a cosmic cartographer, medical astrologer, and herbalist decoding the intersection of soul, body, and belief.
And Adrienne Irizarry, a cycle alchemist trained in East Asian medicine, vibrational healing, and the sacred science of your nervous system.
Together, we blend ancient tools, clinical wisdom, and unapologetic truth-telling.
From main events to metaphysics, tarot to tonics, karma to cancel culture, nothing is off limits and everything is on the table.
This space is for the boldly curious,
the ones who crave uncomfortable conversations, crave deeper insight, and are done pretending that they don't feel what they feel.
So turn it up,
tune in,
and don't say we didn't warn you.
Welcome to TNA. So it's a TNA podcast. It's totally not appropriate.
You know, like the tiny mounds are growing to larger tiny mounds. Bravo, right?
Yeah,
and then
because of chi.
That just blew my mind. Hey, Adrienne, my boobs have gotten bigger. Is this a real thing?
And my answer was yes. It is.
Yes, it is.
We should put this in our list of things to talk about. We could do a whole podcast on what saggy boobs and shrinking boobs and the fact that when you stand in the mirror, if your nipples turn down, like that literally tells you something. Like maybe we should do a whole episode on that because
although I'm not going to lie. Some days I stand in the mirror and I pull them up a little bit and I'm like, you just stay like right here. Like, you know, I just spent the entire holiday with my family. I think you have had family affairs as well. And I'm saying this with the deepest love, okay? But I have a mother that is just not at peace with her body and never has been. And it makes me so deeply sad for her.
Yeah.
But I notice like my own internal self-talk really starting to take a turn the longer I spent with her, because it was like, she's a toothpick, first of all. Like she looks great for her age. And if I heard her say one more time that she needs to go to the gym, her rotator cuff is torn, she's got a detached bicep, like... They talk about painful, and she's back in Pilates. But if I heard her say one more time that she has been gluttonous and needs to go back to the gym, I was going to fucking pull the little amount of hair I have on my head out. I was like, what? Can we talk about something else, please? You know, there's so much life going on right now. And like also the internal self, like very clear where my internal self speak, at least in part, has come from. So as we sit here talking about boobs, you know, at one point I had fake ones and then I had them removed. And I think talking about scars and the interference of chi would be a really good podcast too, because we have dense lymph around our breast tissue. And I think a lot of women struggle with lumps and bumps and funny places. And there's this fear mongering in the medical society. And we don't talk about lumpy boobs being associated with stress and, you know, living according to a solar system, which we're going to talk about today. But it was an interesting experience. You know, it's very interesting to become more self-aware as you grow wiser. I'm not going to say older.
I have had that same sort of wisdom experience. And I found myself over the holiday season, like really kind of sitting back and evaluating what was important in terms of my own output, in terms of social obligations, in terms of like the things that people place priority on. There was so much emphasis on the things. Right. Like we had to have a gift for everybody and like that kind of thing. And I said to my husband, I was like, I feel like this year more than ever, it's just reinforced for me that like I really don't want things.
Yeah.
It's not because like my house is now a small, tiny child toy store. That is part of it though, but it's more like I don't need things. I want to live and have experiences and share moments with my family. So anyway, it was really eye-opening for me. And at the same time, I had some of that, oh, this is where my internal conversations come from, kind of takeaway from all of that. And I'm like, you know what? I really hope that I am doing what I need to do to impart different kinds of internal conversations for my kids.
Yeah. I mean, not that it is my quote unquote job, but I think every behavior, pattern, inherited belief, what have you, that goes along with ancestral line and DNA accumulation. This is a whole podcast episode we can do. It's interesting. I see like the mirroring of emotions being activated in my own son. And I'm like, oh, it's Tiny Taylor. Like I can see how it didn't end with me and it transmuted to him. And it's going to end with him because we're giving him the opportunity to feel big feelings in real time. But my commitment to myself and thus my commitment to my mother is for every moment of displeasure she has with her body, I'm going to find 2 moments of pleasure, one for me and one in liberation of her.
Oh, I love that.
She needs it.
Yeah.
Because she's not going to do it for herself in this lifetime.
Well, I mean, and I look at some of the inherited patterns that I had. Like my parents came in the door the other day and like there was a series of very mundane things that happened from the moment she came through the door. And like her response to all of that, I'm like, I'm breaking that pattern.
Yeah.
I very much used to respond that way because that's what was modeled for me. But I'm breaking that pattern for my lineage. And it takes conscious effort and conscious thought, and it's hard because you slide back into your defaults, right? Like the things that you grew up with where you've been comfortable this whole time. Change and growth are hard, sometimes painful, and they take a lot of self-awareness, but they're so productive.
And I would say it's interesting. I said hard, and then I was like, ooh, Taylor, like, do you want to use that word? Like, yeah, I do think it's hard, but I also think it's more so uncomfortable. Like I had a conversation with my mentor yesterday about emotional coupling, and I was like, oh, we're going to have another one of these conversations. I get to go look at myself in a mirror again. This is after, sitting with my list of illusions. And I'm like, can we just move on to the more cool shit, please? But this is part of getting to the cool shit. And it's uncomfortable. And a lot of people, as we've spoken about on many episodes, just don't do well in discomfort. So our episode today is really focused on providing you with a perspective and tools that you hopefully take and not just consume, but integrate so you can find yourself in spaces of more comfort than discomfort in the upcoming year. Because ladies, in particular, men to a much smaller scale, so I'm predominantly speaking to women, right? You are cyclical. Men are 24 hours cyclical. Women are 28-ish days cyclical. And there's a wide variety of days that women show up within that range, 32, 36, 26, 21, 24. Like I'm sure we could go plus or minus on either side of that spectrum. So for Adrienne and I believe it to be true that, when we utilize our cycle cadence, and we're going to introduce the element of lunar tracking into the way with which we lead our lives, we plan and we show up in business, things change for the better.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So ladies, your body is lunar in nature. We live in a solar-based system. The Gregorian calendar that you all are listening, this podcast is being released, the 4th or the 5th of January, something like that. Like the first full week in January is when you guys are going to be hearing this podcast. So you are now ankle deep in the Gregorian calendar year. That is a solar system approach. Solar is very masculine and it completely and utterly disregards the lunar aspect of life. We used to follow, I think they were called solely lunar calendars, where we combined both the solar cadence of the year and the lunar cadence of the year. So ladies, your body is lunar by nature, and you were never meant to operate in a linear line, much like the Gregorian calendar encourages us to do.
And that's really hard on our bodies.
Extremely.
It's like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. And I know that's like a really old analogy, but it's true. Like our bodies are cyclical by nature. We have different hormones that are dominant in the conversation inside of our body at different points during the cycle, whereas men get this steady burst of testosterone like every 15 or so minutes, and
How
they go
nice.
to right? They go to bed feeling one way, they wake up feeling the same way every single day. Whereas we go to bed feeling one way and we could wake up with tons of energy or no energy at all and go, well, crap, I have a whole day of things that I need to accomplish. And my body, and we internalize this, my body's not showing up for me.
I'm a
Rather
failure.
than, yes. And this is part of the negative self-talk, right? Like, oh, I should be able to do this, or I need to do this, rather than going, okay, body, where are we at today? And when we cycle sync our life, a lot of things begin to shift. Your immune system shows up better. Your cycles show up with fewer symptoms. You are literally on fire all month long. And I know some people are going to go, oh yeah, whatever, but I'll tell you why in a second. And you're able to get everything you need to get done and not feel like you're swimming upstream against the current. So people who rolled their eyes at my comment, and I know there were some of you, and that's okay. I witness you in where you're at right now. But the reason that you're feeling that way is because you're trying to push at times that your body's telling you not to. And if you really slowed down and listened to her talking to you, you would hear her say, I don't have enough energy for this today. Or you might even verbalize that, I don't have enough energy for this today. And that's okay. So our system has socialized us to think that if we are not in spring and summer flowering and producing energy all the time, we are failing somehow. But the reality is there's only part of our population that is hardwired to be able to actually do that. That's men. So women can be as successful, if not more so, because we're actually hardwired to multitask better than men can. Even neurodivergent men, we are still hardwired to multitask better than men. And yet, because we're forced into a box that we don't fit in, because of the way that our hormones express themselves, we are sick more often. Let's talk about adrenal fatigue in women, folks. Like,
that's your kidneys too. I'm so convinced at this point that it's not the adrenals, it's the kidneys, because the adrenals sit atop the kidneys. And once the matriarch of the family, her essence starts to diminish, like you can say goodbye to everything and everyone else. It's like the oldest root in a root system of a tree starting to die.
Yes. Well, and that's actually Chinese medicine puts the adrenals and the kidneys together in terms of like kidney energy governs that
absolutely
part of the body. So, you know, when we push too much, we drain our body of resources, and then we tap into these roots that Taylor's talking about. And the more we tap in, the more we see signs of premature aging, the more we start having chronic fatigue and things of this nature, because we are literally working outside of the capacity of what we have on board. And it takes years for people to recover when they actively make the choice to say, I'm going to do something differently. So if your body is even whispering at you right now, and I know every single person listening is going, oh, I do know that she's whispering, at least whispering. For some of you, she might be yelling already, but it's because society tells us in order to be successful, we have to work like little men. And that is bullshit. If we learn to work in the rhythm of our actual hormone cadence, we are wildly more successful. And for men, that's scary, but it's also like quote unquote unpredictable, right? Unless you start learning how your cycle works. Okay. So there are two big halves of your cycle. So for any of you that this is brand new information, turn this up, listen to this again. This is really critically important. And if you need more guidance, reach out to us, because this is so important. Foundational information that was our birthright that we should have had from the beginning.
Also, it's January and you have 12 months. So like if you're really looking to make suitable, sustainable, significant through subtle pivot type of change in your life, you start now with information like this. You don't just consume, you integrate.
Well, and that whole new
such bullshit. I can talk about this. I just did a whole post for Substack on this because the people who are literally having a new solar year, January, February, like you are the people that I'm like, okay, cool. The energy, like we're going to turn the dial up a little bit. We don't discredit the season that we're in, but you've got more of that regenerative, renewing essence coming at you. If your birthday is in July and you're like, let's go, new year, new me, like at the gym, 5 a.m., 3 days a week, you know what I mean? Like gonna kill it in business. I'm telling you right now, by the end of January, you're going to be dead. Not literally, but like metaphorically, you are going to burn out all of the reserves that you don't actually have because we're in the only season that we're given to build the very kidney essence that Adrienne is talking about. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb. Don't be dumb.
So I have to say I'm one of those people that I'm starting to feel a little bit of that like solar energy.
Yes.
And it's funny, like I always have felt like the beginning of the year, it's slow, but I can feel throughout the month because my birthday is February 1st. There will be a quiz later. So, you know, if you feel the energy kind of like ramp up for me during January, I feel a little sluggish at the beginning, but then like as I get closer to my birthday, I start feeling like I'm cooking with gas again. And then like my birthday, usually I find like a lot of things open, like doors open, energy moves, like it's really cool. But that's because I've cycle synced my life, guys. So like I'm working in alignment with my natal chart. I am working in alignment with the seasons in nature that I see outside my window. I am working in the internal seasons inside of my body. So before I go into the phases of the cycle, I'm going to back up a second and I'm going to talk about the fact that I used to try to work like a little man. And my 20s, was I a department director by the time I was 26? Yes. Did I have a staff? Yes. Was that a braggable thing? I thought so at the time. And then I was diagnosed with celiac disease and I was struggling with endometriosis.
The wheels fell off the bus.
God, the wheels were already falling off the bus.
You know, Mater in Cars, you know, Mater. Yeah. Mater came on the scene.
Yeah. And he had to like tow my ass back to the friggin' shop because like I was dead. So just before I turned 30, I was the sickest of my entire life. Productive as hell, but at a cost. So I started like, after I had my heart attack on birth control at 25, I really had to take a step back and go,
please,
holy shit.
1 minute. She said heart attack at 25 on birth control, if you missed that.
Yeah, that's a big part of my story, if anybody is interested. So I am so lucky to be alive.
But it's not from a study, Adrienne.
No, but there was a really big lawsuit for Yaz and Yasmin, and there was like a whole bunch of birth control pills, right? Oh my God, deep vein thrombosis. And my doctor was like, I'm shocked you didn't have a stroke at the gym the day before. And I was like, holy shit. So like, there's really big risks that come with
minimal.
Birth control is a class 1 carcinogen, guys. Just putting that out there. So
you can also avoid pregnancy. Sorry, here we go with the tangent. You can also avoid pregnancy by learning how to sync your life with your cycle. Just saying, it takes a little bit of self-control, right? Perhaps a barrier method. Yes, shit happens. But, you know, the effectiveness when you understand your cycle. Look, I'm going to knock on this fake wood my computer's sitting on right here. Okay. But I'm 11 years into this parenting journey. I personally do not want any more children. And knowing my cycle has made I don't take birth control.
Well, if you know what your body is doing, fertility awareness planning is 99.4% effective.
With zero side effects.
With zero side effects and everything to gain. Hormonal birth control is 83 to 85% effective. Condoms are 83 to 85% effective when used properly.
Also, I think we could do a whole episode on like the pH of the vagina and how perhaps not allowing your partner to finish inside of you unless you're actually trying to get pregnant is probably the favorable option here, but I digress.
Yes. And steaming can help with that. Reach out. So yeah, like I was pushing and I was on birth control. I was literally a ticking time bomb. working against my cycle, totally out of touch with the fact that I was a woman, and honestly actively trying to be out of touch. If I'm really honest, I was
I think
actively
bodies
trying
represent
to
that too. Adrian and I had this exchange
Mhm.
via text, and I was having an existential crisis in my shower. So I got out and texted Adrian, but I was looking at pictures of myself, from 5 years ago. And I was like, I kind of miss the way that I look, but the cost of looking that way was I was so sick, but I was small. Like my full size A cups were like double minus A, you know what I mean? And like
Yeah.
I had hips, but I had no padding on my hips. And like I look at myself and I was like, sure, I was feminine, but it was almost as if my body was mimicking the mental state that I was in, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I went up a whole cup size, much to my chagrin, when I started moving through the world in a more feminine way.
Yeah.
I mean, my husband's not complaining, but I was like, oh,
Sister
come
speaks.
on, man. Like, they were big enough. Like, I'm good.
Yeah.
So, I was actively, and I can see the same thing in myself, honestly, that my features were a little more, I'm going to say hard edged.
Yep.
In terms of like jawline and all of those kinds of things. I really think that like my body was trying to be what I was trying to manifest.
I was a fucking featherweight. Like if I look at myself, and I used to be so proud, I'm like, I can run circles around the guys at the gym. You know what I mean? Like pull-ups, push-ups, running. I was like, that's because you were like 120 pounds wet, Taylor.
I see. And I never had that experience. I'm built like Brunhilde. So like I am short, I am stocky, I am built to withstand the European famine.
All you had to do was go.
So, when I started, like, I had this big moment where, like, I almost died and was really grateful that I didn't. And I was like, holy shit, I need to, like, reevaluate how things are going in my life. And I'm sharing all of this because I don't want you to get to that same point. And I know some of you are there. You're starting to hear the signs that birth control isn't working for you or whatever. And this is that invitation to get curious. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that feels aligned to you to come off of it or not, this is the opportunity to get curious. Because when I started actually taking a look at my body and how my cycle worked, and I started doing a little bit of the deep dive that led me to the work that I'm doing now, I started getting really fucking mad because I'm like, why was nobody telling me this stuff when I was a kid? Like your sex ed class, if you went to school in the well, this is in most Western culture. So this is not just a United States problem because I've talked to people internationally that didn't learn anything except here's the anatomy of the man, here's the anatomy of the female. You bleed once a month. Don't put P in the V or you'll get pregnant. Like
or
that's
an STD, like the scare tactics.
Yep. And that's the other part is here's the long list of the ways that you can get an STD. And this is what they all look like. And here's a slide with a scabies on it, like that type of stuff. Yeah. Right. But nobody talked about the health part of what it means to live in either of these assigned at birth bodies.
Is it too crazy to think too? Oh man, I'm probably going to get hate for this, especially on YouTube. Some of the comments on YouTube, I'm like, oh, sit down, sister. Have you looked at them yet?
No.
You should go look at some of them. Well, it's better than getting scammed by my doctor on the ChatGPT podcast. I'm like, nobody mentioned doctor in this episode at all. Like, did you not listen?
Yeah.
Anywho, but do you think it's like a crazy idea to teach, I guess we can say kids, but if you look at historically, like obviously our lifespan is getting longer, which means we expect people to withhold and abstain for much longer. And we have all of these societal expectations around sex. But like, what would life look like if we sat down with our young men and women who are of age because their bodies are like screaming at them? And we were just like, hey, these are the tools that you need. And these are the feelings that we would encourage you to have when you finally choose to do it and use discernment. Like, what if we had a mature conversation around it with our children?
I think we can totally have a body literacy conversation that is age appropriate.
But here's the thing, like, what if at 16, we were like, it's probably going to happen. And we can either partake in a conversation where we empower them to do it in a way that feels good for them, or we make it a taboo subject and we don't talk about it at all. And then we shame the shit out of them when we find out.
It would totally change. Like, this is human nature, right? Like, if you tell somebody don't do it, that's the thing that they're going to want to do.
Yep.
right? So my approach in my own household, popular or not, my approach was body literacy first, in terms of this is how your bodies work. This is what can result from how your bodies work. And now let's talk about being responsible about the fact that you're going to have these very natural feelings in one direction or another. I always joke that my husband misses all of the really juicy conversations here in our house because he's always at work when somebody asks me a question like, what is Mr. B? And I looked at my girls and I was like, who is Mr. B?
Yeah.
And my son goes, well, you know, it's like when your penis in your pants. He was like 7 or 8 years old. And I was like, oh my God, we're having an erection conversation right now. And I totally didn't expect it. So I just very casually was like, oh, well, this is what it is. This is what's happening. I guess there was a little boy on the bus who could will it to happen. And my son thought that was hilarious.
Yeah.
And so this is how this conversation began. And so I was just very like matter of fact about it. Like, this is something that happens and here's why, here's how, like, and just was very like, this is the weather report, like no big deal. Like if it wasn't charged, the kids were like, oh, okay. And then they just moved on. But then 5 or so years later, they would come out with, oh, well, this is what this is. And so like they heard me. And because it didn't feel taboo or whatever, like I am pretty confident that all of my kids at this point have enough, I'm going to call it safety knowledge, that because we just normalized it as it's come up all throughout their developmental years. And then I made them all sit down with a book because it was awkward to talk to mom about. But then if they had questions or if like their friends were talking about things, like I always just like held space for like questions that made me squirm inside. But I was like, you know, like I need to be chill about this so that they realize that this is just a normal part of their body development. And it only makes me squirm because I was raised in a French Catholic household where like nobody talked about it. So like I talk with people about it all day long, but it still feels weird to me as a parent. Like if I'm really honest, it still feels weird to me as a parent when I'm having those conversations because I never had those conversations growing up, right? So I'm trying to model what I wish I had. And, you know, but this kind of information is honestly our birthright. Men need to know how women's bodies work so that they can be supportive partners. They can be supportive brothers and sisters. Like it doesn't matter how they orient.
Others. Yeah.
When I walk into a room and I do like networking stuff and they inevitably I stand up and introduce myself and somebody goes, ha ha ha, do you fix PMS? And my response, I used to be so bitchy about it, but now I realize they're just not informed.
Yeah.
And so I just look at them and I go, oh, I'm sorry to hear that your wife is suffering. Like, I would be happy to have a conversation with you about how you can support her in feeling better. Whenever I get that comment and their face changes instantly, because really at the end of the day, they do want to be a supportive partner. They don't want to see the person that they love suffering. So like, it's important for everybody to understand how men's bodies work and how women's bodies work. Okay. We're talking about assigned at birth and how hormones function, right? So no, I don't get any hate mail underneath this post, but like when we're looking at how hormones function and how biology functions.
But I think this is important because even when we're talking about the transgendered community, the hormones, even if they're introduced to the opposite sex, it will never be mimicking, mirroring the experience of the assigned at birth born with and as. Like it won't.
I mean, I think that there's a little more similarity in female to male only because there's a flattening of their hormone expression. But in the male to female, I don't see that same lunar kind of
way too much that goes on in the female body. And even with all of the hormones in the world, you're not going to get that.
And this even extends, like, there was a question in a Facebook forum that I responded to the other day, and I got mixed responses back from people, but it is not a popular thing to share with people that if you remove your tubes as a form of birth control, it's going to change the way your hormones function. It does, guys.
Yeah.
Now, just because NIH hasn't designated any fucking money to studying it does not mean it's not a thing.
They haven't studied women, period. Hello. I'm going to say that on every podcast.
They really haven't. I mean, when less than 5% of the NIH budget looks at anything women's health related, let alone does some actual meaningful studies, like you really can't. And, it's not the fault of your doctor. It's the fact that they aren't provided with any clinical anything to be able to make recommendations one way or another, which is why looking back at ancient wisdom really is the only source for women.
Yeah.
Because we knew how to take care of our bodies. Like going back to being cyclical, when half the village was on their period, they went into a red tent and they were quiet and they rested. And the women who were in their ovulatory phase at that time would go in and take care of them and make sure they were fed and
Christmas
warm.
caroling and going to family parties and making sure that dinner was at the right time in the right location. Guys, I got my period on Christmas.
Yeah, I got mine
Merry
2 days
Christmas.
before Christmas.
Jingle bells, jingle bells. But in addition to what we see behaviorally and communally, you also have the moon. Every single one of you has a lunar cycle. The moon pulls the tide and you are 70% water. I love it when people are like, the moon doesn't affect anybody. Work in a hospital and then come back and talk to me. You absolutely see the difference in psych patients, dementia patients, you know what I mean? Alzheimer's patients, sundowners patients, people coming into the ER. There is a vast difference, especially 3 days leading up to and on the full moon, so it makes sense that women in particular, but all people would rise and fall too with that lunar cycle. And you have cycles of the moon. I would encourage every woman to start tracking where the moon is. It's not that hard. What phase of the moon are we in and where are you in your cycle and how do you feel? So I'm going to walk through the phases really quickly and then, interject where the information that you bring to the table would be complementary. Like, let's just make this make sense for everybody. And then obviously before hitting record, Adrienne and I also had this sidebar conversation. As she mentioned, half the village took care of the other half that was bleeding and vice versa. So the moon phases I'm going to read back to you are not necessarily where your cycle is going to fall. It might be in reverse and opposite. Okay. So it can go one direction or the other. In my world, the new moon is the menstrual phase for me.
Yes.
It's the void. And it is for many women. So your energy is the lowest for me at the new moon. This is where I need to rest. This is where I need to reset. This is a really great time for journaling, inner visioning, setting intentions, and asking what wants to begin in a quiet capacity. Then there's the waxing moon, which is the follicular phase for me. And obviously, Adrienne and I are going to mirror one another because she got her period 2 days before me. Here we go, right? So the follicular phase is the build mode of the body. It's where energy starts to rise. Day 3 is where I really start to come back online. Is that similar to what you feel, Adrienne?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
And Eastern medicine recognizes that day 1 and day 2 really are the void. There's no big hormonal anything that is in play at that time. So really your first big event is this rise of FSH that happens on day 3, which is why a lot of people
it's really minuscule.
Yes, it is.
It's big for the body, but it's minuscule when we're looking at it
in the grand scheme.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, as Adrienne said, energy is rising. This is where we start to plan. This is where we start to create a bit more. This is where we start to rebuild metaphorically and figuratively speaking, as well as physically. This is a great time where we can start plugging back into strategizing, batching content, which we could have a whole conversation about batching content. Adrienne's great at it, and I just don't operate that way. So like trying new things, asking yourself, what am I excited to grow? Then there's the full moon, right? This is obviously ovulation. This is expression. This is magnetism for those of us that are really in tune with our luteal phase. So interesting. For so many years, I heard ovulation and luteal phase is when you're going to feel your best. And I'm like, that was a fucking lie. Like maybe I might have a day or two, but I've come to find that for me and for many women, I imagine you have a similar experience. They don't feel great in their luteal phase, like at all.
And a lot of that has to do with chi depletion because ovulation is an energetic event. So before we go too much further, I want to just have a couple of touch points on the phases that you've already talked about. So during the new moon, that is the most introverted energy of your cycle. So when you're bleeding, during that time of the month, that is the most introverted energy you will have. Whether you express yourself as an extrovert or an introvert, you're going to be more introverted during that time frame. So let me tell you, as a natural introvert needing to socialize during Christmas, that was hella hard for me. I had to fight for every ounce of energy that I use. It happened literally Thanksgiving for me too. So I was like, well, damn. So but follicular phase energy, you start coming out of that hermit shell a little bit. You feel like actually interacting with humans. You have the ability to actually express yourself. So being less verbal during your period or in the few days leading up to your period, completely normal. When you go, oh, like the words on the tip of my tongue, or you start saying something and it comes out all garbled and you're like, what the hell was that?
Normal.
Like, totally normal. So I want to just normalize that, because that is not where your energy is strongest during that phase of your cycle. You start becoming more verbal. This is why batching content doesn't suck quite as bad during your follicular phase, because you are being moved into a more extroverted energy. You are more verbal. I am in that phase right now. I can actually words and stuff, which makes me so proud, because I had a few very illiterate days there about a week ago. So, you know, if you're going to be doing anything where you have to give presentations, you need to record, you need to talk, you need to interact with people, you need to go to networking events, anything like that, you're going to want to plan that in your follicular phase and about the time you get to ovulation. When ovulation feels flat, or for the people who are listening where they go, I feel like my period is coming and then no blood comes for 2 weeks. It's because you are chi deficient, my love. And
he is life force.
Yes, your vital energy, your battery is at like 5% and you need to plug into the wall, because the body is like trying to take resources from other places in order to execute this ovulation. Because there's not enough extra energy in order for that to happen. When you feel that way at ovulation, yes, it does decrease your chances for conception. Okay. If that is a goal of yours, there are ways to be able to minimize those symptoms around ovulation. And I won't go into all of that right now, but you don't have to stay that way. It should feel like more of a bright, shiny part of your month, because if you think about it biochemically, your body is trying to attract a mate
and make a baby.
So like, if you need to have a headshot done for work, plan it during ovulation, because your face is going to be the most symmetrical that it is the entire month. You're going to have the most glow in your skin that you will have the entire month. You're not going to have the bags under your eyes like you do right after you have your period, because you've bled. Right. So you're going to be the most vibrant version of you, or you should be. And if not, that's part of your body whispering at you when you're coming into this ovulation phase. It is a chi event. If there's not enough chi on board because you're swimming against the tide too much, you're going to be more symptomatic at ovulation. So after I had my son, my period started really early. I was like, oh God, even though I was exclusively breastfeeding, that's a story for another day. So I found, though, that in the first few months after my period came back, I felt like somebody pulled the rug out from underneath me for like 3 days. It was like a day or two before ovulation, the day of ovulation, and the day after. I was like, dear God, send help. And then my energy would pick back up again, and it was great.
I think it's really important to make mention of this too, because I do work with a lot of women who have 2 kids under the age of 3, or 2 kids, 3 kids under the age of 5. Like, there's no quick fix for this. We really have to put into perspective, you literally created a new human from the resources that were available in your body. I don't care how clean you ate. I don't care how much you hydrated. I don't care how wonderful the nutraceuticals you took were. The majority of what you input went to the baby, right? And then you had the baby, and now you're breastfeeding the baby, and the majority of what you're taking in still goes to the baby. Oh, and you're working full time, and you run a company, and you're grocery shopping, cleaning, cooking, managing people. Your body is responding completely appropriately when your luteal phase fucking sucks. It is telling you what it needs, and you choosing. I'm not gaslighting you. We really have to get away from this whole like, she's gaslighting me. No, your symptoms are very real, and I empathize with what it is you're going through. But like, I wouldn't be in the position with my body I am today if I constantly told people they were gaslighting me when they just told me the truth. right?
Yeah.
And the truth of the matter is you're depleted and things need to come off of your plate. And I mean, love you, but the things you do outside of your household are really not that important.
I mean, at the end
Your
of the
life
day,
depends on it. The quality of your life for years to come depends on your ability to make a short list of non-negotiables, and everything else gets placed outside of that.
yes, absolutely. And when you're looking at your body in a cyclical way, those non-negotiables can change as you move throughout your month. Actually, they should change as you move through your month, which you know, from the outside, your partner often will look at you and be like, oh, like, where are we today? But like, honestly, having them be a collaborative part of the conversation, like, I'm going to start my period here. So if we need to plan this thing or execute these things, or if we have a really busy kid scheduled week this week, I'm not going to be as helpful, or I'll be able to take on more here, but I'm going to need your help over here. Like, this is really, really important to include your partner in the conversation, because this helps you both manage the household with less effort. And for you to stop telling yourself you're not doing enough. Because by the time you come through this chi event at ovulation and you move into the luteal phase, which is usually where most women get most symptomatic, and it has to do with progesterone. Okay, that is the dominant hormone. Estrogen's at the beginning. There's a little burst of testosterone in the middle. We've got progesterone being the primary voice in the conversation at the end of the month. And there are some women that feel great in like the 5 days post ovulation, and then they start to feel wonky.
It used to be me.
Yep. And then sometimes women will get like almost to their period, and then it'll be like 2 or 3 days before their bleed, they'll feel wonky. But there is a shift that will happen throughout the course of those 14 days after.
And it tends to coincide with the elevation in progesterone.
Yes.
Right. So like what most don't realize too is you'll have the ovulatory event and then you will crash out hormonally. There will be like a clean canvas day, right? Post ovulation. And then progesterone, like slowly, it's like they knock on the door, open the door, sticks its head in, looks around the room and goes, can I come in? You know? So it could be 5 days post ovulation, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days post ovulation before you start to see the rise in that progesterone. So it's not a quick turnaround. Like
no, and this is why like it takes a little bit post ovulation to confirm ovulation if you're using basal temp tracking, because you have the event, but then progesterone slowly increases. So your temperature incrementally will ratchet up. Right. So, you know, during your luteal phase, most people are like, I feel like shit, I can't do anything. Well, actually, the gift that you are given during that phase is, yes, you're starting to turn inward more, right? You've hit the zenith of your
need to do anyway.
Yes, we need to. But like, this is where people are still trying to force themselves out into networking events and they really aren't feeling it. And like, they want to stand like a wallflower because they're like, ugh, I just don't have the energy for this. But my boss is telling me I have to do this thing. Right. So just an example. Can you tell I lived that in the past? So, you know, you're going from this big, like sunshiny event, right? The full moon, the full light of the moon energy. And now the light starts to decrease in the sky as you're moving from the full moon
into the waning moon.
Into the waning moon, but back towards the new moon energy, right? So as the light decreases in the sky, so does your energy as well. And you start turning inward from being more extroverted to more introverted. And the reason for that is if you did get pregnant, your body is naturally trying to essentially protect all of your resources so that it can go towards the beginning stages of building this little human. Yeah. So not wanting to be as social and just Netflixing and chilling with a soft blanket on the couch is totally normal. Yeah. Not wanting to be touched by your partner is totally normal. Like, because your body biochemically is saying, oh, well, if there is a pregnancy, I need to protect the baby. Right. So your brain is geared for planning. You're excellent at details during this time frame. You might not feel like being as social, But this is a great time for strategic planning or executing project management things, or sometimes you can be more writing focused. Although I find that most women feel more aligned for writing tasks during their menstrual phase. But, towards the end of the luteal phase, sometimes that is where some of the inspirational bells for writing blogs or social media posts, or maybe you have to draft a report at work or something like that, you feel more like doing that type of work. So any way you look at it, your body actually gives you the tools that you need to get everything you need to get done.
Yeah.
And I often will save I'm going to use the word filing. Nobody has a filing cabinet anymore, but like very pedestrian
Organization
tasks. Yeah. Where you're like sorting or cleaning out an inbox or like that type of stuff. I save that for my menstrual phase because that's more where my energy's at. It's a task that needs to get done, but it's not one that I am best serving the highest and best good of my family, my life, my business to do while I'm in the peak of being able to actually talk to people.
And I think it's really important too. So we've talked about the new moon, which is the menstrual phase, the waxing moon, follicular, the full moon, ovulation. You see how that goes though, like the representation in the full moon and what's actually happening internally. And then we move into the waning, which is the luteal phase, right? Where the energy turns inward. What can also happen too is depending on the moon with which you were born under, your lunar return every month, you can actually see a second ovulatory event. Now, 9 times out of 10, you are going to see your ovulatory event hormonally cross-sect your ovulatory event in a lunar sense. They tend to track together. But on occasion, this happens to me a few months out of the year, I'll get ovulation confirmed, and then I'll get a second ovulation, and all the same classical representations of ovulation reoccur. And it's because the moon, the lunar phase, like my lunar return, is not cross-secting with my hormonal ovulatory phase or event. So that's something else you want to pay attention to as well. Nothing spontaneous in the body. Sorry. I do believe in spontaneous remission, but I don't think that's so spontaneous either. I digress. But like spontaneous ovulation is not spontaneous. You can track it in the sky. You can track it based on what's going on in your body and the influence of your lunar cycle.
So I think what you said is really important and it's very much not talked about. So for people who are not familiar with a lunar return versus where they are in their cycle, could you make that concrete? Like my lunar return starts on such and such date.
It changes every month.
Okay. See, this is the part that I don't know if everybody knows.
So your lunar return is when the moon is at the exact degree and position it was on the day you were born. The time can change. The house in your natal chart changes every month, right? So you have like a fresh new blueprint every month with your lunar return. It's when the moon that we're dealing with now this month sits in the exact position it was in the day that you were born. So for me this month, my new month started on December 28th. That's my new month, right? It's not starting on January 1st. It started on December 28th. And my moon this month is sitting in my 12th house under the sign of Capricorn. My natal chart, I'm Aries, moon 9th house, right? Okay. A 12th house moon. I'm not talking to fucking anybody outside of this podcast. Are you kidding me? That is like internal processing. That is reflection. That is organizing internally under the sign of Capricorn, which is influenced by Mars for me. So it's internal restructuring. It's internal action. It's internal reflection. It's looking at illusions. That's been a big topic in my world, right? It's looking at how I actually want to show up in the world when I step into that first house lunar return. It's a rebuild and a restructuring of my internal architecture so that when I'm finally ready to step out into the world with that first moon return, I'm ready to go. My systems are locked and loaded. And it's going to change every month, right? And it's not linear like people think. Sometimes, like last month, it was an 8th house. Yep. I'm just getting whammied. For people that know astrology, I am getting like whammied. I'm getting the book thrown at me. Like I had a lunar return in the 8th house. That's extremely private too. That's the Freudian house. That's psychology. That's shared resources. That's collaboration. So I took December off of social media and I'm like, yeah, I'll be back on January 1st. And then I looked at my lunar return. I was like, no, I won't. I'll see y'all in February when I'm ready to talk. But to Adrienne's point, I'm stepping out of, obviously I'm in my follicular phase, but a lot of my external efforts at this point are being placed on platforms like Substack, where I can literally utilize long format to communicate what's going on in my mind from a creative perspective. I'm not in a place where I can be like, we'll see how I do in ovulation, but front and center on places like Instagram.
But knowing this about yourself is how you work in alignment, right? Even if you don't have the level of astro understanding that Taylor does, and I highly suggest you reach out to her because her Align and Thrive report will totally blow your mind. But like, even just understanding what phase the moon is in, you will gain huge insight into where you are energetically in your body. And if you are one of these red moon bleeders versus white moon bleeders.
That's full moon versus, so red moon is going to be a full moon bleeder. White moon is going to be a new moon bleeder. We have a full moon in Cancer coming up.
So for
that's a water sign moon. Thanks for purging for the collective. Thank you.
So like, you know, when you feel like extra emotional around your period and you're like, I don't know, like my life was going great, but I just feel so, like it's because of this kind of stuff. And this all affects the way that you show up in the world. And so when women begin to really tap into even just the basics of where is the moon in the sky, and then you lay over it, well, what sign is it in? Like you gain a depth of understanding about the way that you're showing up. Because like how many of you or friends in your circle have gone, oh my God, is it a full moon? Because like shit's gotten real in my house. Like, and you might actually not be at the full moon, but it has to do with how it's affecting their chart.
You want to know what's so hilarious, Adrienne? You know, like I've been studying astrology for a really long time, but prior to me picking up any books / information on astrology, I was sitting out in the lineup with a girlfriend of mine that I am still friends with and another friend. We were surfing and the full moon, like you could start to see it in the evening sky. We were at that point and I'm like, wow, another full moon? How many are we having this year? And like everybody just died because they were like, Taylor, it doesn't change year by year. Like we have the same number of full moons every year. We get one a month, Taylor. Like it was just one of those like, wow, that was a blonde fucking moment for me, you know? But like, I'm sharing that because I knew nothing about this stuff many moons ago, pun intended, right? And you can learn. And when you learn how to sync your life, there we go with your cycle, and you learn how to utilize lunar phases in order to track your own internal weather climate, so to speak. It's like a weather report. Literally, lunar returns are like a monthly weather report and solar returns are like a yearly report. You know, so when you learn how to utilize these two tools, life becomes a lot more, you can bend time. You can bend expectation. You really start to question the societal standards too, where you're like, where's all this fake urgency coming from? What are we actually running towards?
Yes. And why are we running?
Yeah, like it's very interesting to start questioning these things. I love it when people are like, if you're going to shit the bed on social media, why? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, or like, you're not going to be successful. Well, how do you define success?
Exactly. And how do you define success was really the question that started me down this path in the first place, because I was sick. And because I had celiac, I knew where every public bathroom was, everywhere I went, and the urgency was embarrassing. The accidents were embarrassing. Like I was so young and my body is literally falling apart. Something has to change.
Literally bleeding through scrubs in the hospital. I remember that, like walking into work, getting my period and not, because I wasn't really paying attention and I was working like a little man, and then going to surgical units or OB units and being like, do you guys have an extra pair of scrubs I can put on? Because I have blood through mine.
Yeah. I mean, I used to bleed through things. I had
or thinking your period was done and then being like, oh, I planned for my life to just move on. And then you're like, oh, it wasn't done. Okay.
Yeah.
And then bleeding through everything you're wearing that day too.
That
and still being expected to work. Like, what?
Yes.
Would you go to work with shit all over your pants? because I had blood all over mine. Like those were the questions I used to like think about in my head as I'm working with this male manager who had no idea. Like, I'm sorry, sir, if you shit yourself, would you continue walking around the hospital like and carrying on in conversation as if nothing had happened?
Yeah. But these are the challenges that women face.
Bill, I'm talking about you. If this podcast ever finds its way to you, I'm talking about you, Bill. I won't give the last name. Worst experience of my life with a manager.
Oh, I bled through things too. Like I remember having that moment of like, is this going to be the rest of my life? And is this as good as it's going to get? And like, I think that was a turning point for me because
also, am I going to work with like
miserable
people like this for the rest of my life? Like,
yeah.
I'm so glad you have a wife at home that does everything for you. You probably don't listen to dick that comes out of her mouth, you know, but
yeah. And is she even advocating for herself? You know what I mean? Like this takes all of us actually communicating with the partners and the small microcosms that are around us. It takes every single one of us educating the microcosm around us in order for this information to start becoming normalized.
Yeah.
Because our health education is dismal. Mm-hmm. I saw an incredible ad somebody sent to me that Body Form just put out about periods and like the fact that we aren't taught anything about what the blood should look like and the period itself and why does it disappear for a while and like all those kinds of things. And it was so poignant about, you know, what is it that you do not know? And for the vast majority of people, unless they're trying to have a baby, they literally don't know anything. I have very intelligent practitioner people that come to see me that have never tracked their cycle and don't know how to.
Yeah.
And it's not a fault of their own. It is totally something that has fallen down in the system.
Yeah.
And that needs to change. And when we normalize these kinds of conversations and we hold boundaries around, I am tired today and I do not have the energy to do that. How else can this thing get done?
A lot of the times it starts silently too. Like it's giving yourself permission to just take 1, 2, 3, 4, however many things off your list. Like that's how it started for me. Like I used to wake up and tell my husband what I wanted to do. And he'd look at me and be like, you sure you got the gas in the tank to do all of that? And I'd be like, yeah, you know what I mean? And then I'd get to like item 5 of 15 and I'd be like, yeah, I can't do anything else today. Like I've spent my reserves for the day, but having a partner be like, I'm really proud of you for stopping where you're stopping because they've witnessed you in the phases where you would just push yourself to exhaustion is really a powerful experience for those of us that grew up in homes that expected productivity and then landed ourselves in environments professionally after academically being in environments that expected productivity and output. Like it's really nice to finally land in a place where, and it's uncomfortable, you know, to begin with. But I told Adrian I had until 11:15 and it's 11:41. Here we are. So my phone is blowing up. It's New Year's Eve, guys. But is there anything else you would impart to those listening to this podcast about cycle syncing your life?
That we're in the season of starting to reflect on what kinds of changes we want for ourselves as the year unfolds. Okay, this is not a new year, new me thing. This is a reflection in the winter season around what is it that I want out of this year. And as you do that reflecting, I invite you to put on that list awareness around the lunar cycle and starting to look at how your body interacts with that and responds to that and where your big biomarkers, your period and ovulation tend to fall within that. And then go back and listen to this episode again and listen to some of the things that we talked about that were strengths during each of these phases and start to apply a little bit at a time. Because what you'll find is in a very short period of time, usually about 3 months, you will notice that if you're listening, your body will be back in enough of an alignment that she will be talking more clearly to you. And she will be saying, I don't have enough energy for this today. Or yes, let's do extra today because I feel great today. And then you can start working with her as a collaborative partner rather than against that natural energy that is stepping forward.
And if you need help figuring out the moon cycles, AstroSeek, so it's astro-seek.com, has a lunar calendar for the month to tell you what phase, the moon is in. Your particular lunar placement is going to be respective to you, right? So lunar astrology is very different than natal astrology. It's very different than solar return astrology. But if you need help figuring out what phase the moon is in so that you can start tracking it, they also have planners with moon phases too. I might find some and hand them off so that they're in the show notes. But astroseek.com is a free, easy to access resource to start tracking what phase the moon is in so you can translate that into where you are in terms of your mood, your body, your cycle. So this is all about going from hustle to harmony. It's, syncing your life with the moon phases. It's syncing your life with your cycle. And really, it's all about learning to be human again.
Yeah.
In a world where AI is growing, let's disengage from the robotic behavior and re-engage with what it means to be human. And ladies, you're lunar. So on that note, we should have something spicy next week. Adrian's basement flooded this morning. I'm getting blown up because I gotta go. So maybe next week we can talk about the absolutely ridiculous statistic around women. What is it? Increasing fluid volume 10 to 15% and it being considered insignificant at their cycle. Man, that one really fucking pissed me off. I was like, oh, it's insignificant. But if your dick was 10 to 15% bigger,
there'd be reports in the news about it.
So on that note, until next time, guys, stay well.